So for the ultra-dispersed catalyst, which we were planning to inject, and the catalyst is just a material that would make the same reaction happen at a lower temperature, lower pressure, at a faster rate. So it's actually promoting a reaction. For it to be effective, the size has to be as small as possible, and it has to be very well dispersed within the chamber that I showed, right? And at the same time, it has to be stable. It has to remain there for the longest period of time, suspended and very stable in that environment, for it to actually keep on processing and cracking heavy oil. And if we can form it in situ within the formation, if we can make sure that it is very well dispersed, it will actually, if we can form it in situ, it will be very well dispersed, as opposed to injecting it from the surface and making sure that it's dispersed within the environment, and then start the upgrading conditions and the upgrading processes. So this was our approach. Try to form it in situ, in addition to making sure that all those conditions are satisfied. Now, if we look at the closer look, if we take a closer look at what's happening exactly at the point between the two injector and the producer well, which is this zone here, in which we were trying to inject or form the ultra-dispersed catalyst. If you zoom in, this zone will be actually constituting of very small water droplets because of the steam that you have injected or because the water already exists in that environment. Very small water droplets surrounded by asphaltenes, by the way. They surround the water droplets and they stabilize it within the environment. And those water droplets, depending on the water content, they can be very, very tiny, from 2 to 50 nanometers in size. So they can be very tiny. And those systems are actually very familiar to us. Those systems are what we call micro-emulsion systems. And micro-emulsion systems, as opposed to emulsion, this is the macro-emulsion and this is the micro-emulsion. If you zoom in, they actually consist of very small little particles of water or droplets of water that are, again, very well dispersed in an organic environment. Again, you have heavy oil, water, and on those systems, you still have the oil and the water picture. Now, what do we do with those? We actually try to use them as micro or nano reactors. There's water content that can solubilize metals, right? Metal salts. And then we can use them as nanoreactors in order to form our nanoparticles. And then by nature, those are very well dispersed in the system. And as a result, the nanoparticles will be also very well dispersed in the system. So that was the hypothesis, or was the educated guess that we based our research on. So again, the same picture I'm showing here just to show you it's the same. The microemulsions, I have been working with them for a long time ago, probably since 2002. And typically, we've used them in the following manner. So we're using a reactant that we dissolve in the water pools here of microemulsion A, if you like. And the other reactant that is forming the nanoparticles that are supposed to be catalyst eventually, we dissolve it in a reactor B, or microemulsion B. We mix the two together. What happens is that the two droplets of water, they actually interact, so they can exchange content. Once they exchange contents, the two reactants will see one another. So assume that you have a salt, metal salt, let's say nickel chloride, and a reducing agent that would make nickel chloride into nickel particle, right? So imagine that B is a reducing agent, and this is the nickel chloride. Once they see each other, reaction takes place, and the nickel particle forms as a result, and it will be very well dispersed and supported by the structure of the asphaltenes, at least in the heavy oil, and it will be very well dispersed within the system, which is our objective. So the objective is actually achieved, we're hoping, still. So we've used those as preparation methods, or if you like, a lab approach towards nanoparticle formation in heavy oil. Now, with that method inside, or in mind, actually, we decided, okay, why don't we use the microemulsion approach, which is similar to real life scenario, and try to form the following particles that would achieve the following objectives. The first objective was the removal of H2S, which is something that we have done some work on and we have proved to work. Those were particles of iron hydroxide, and if I have the time, I'll go over them, and I will ask the chair. 4 minutes remaining. So probably I'll just show you the main results out of here. But we actually formed those nanoparticles of iron hydroxide, and they were very effective at capturing H2S within a simulated reservoir. So we made a simulated reservoir, and we proved that those particles are very effective at capturing H2S. So this was one of our first objectives, and it goes very well with our theme, which is looking after the environmental impact of in situ upgrading. Then we departed and we said, okay, we will actually look also at asphaltene adsorption. So if you remember, that tiny little water droplet is surrounded by asphaltene. If we can have a particle there that we can form and it has affinity to asphaltene, it can selectively collect the asphaltene from the heavy oil, which is considered as upgrading on its own, right? And afterwards, we can put some gasification conditions, meaning that we have to increase the temperature, the pressure, inject steam, which is part of the platform already, so we're not putting something new into the system, and gasify the steam. So we can use this for in situ, what we call in situ gasification. And this is a research that is currently taking place in my lab. There is a PhD student working on this. The other thing that we looked into also, why don't we again have the nickel or the catalyst in general, not only nickel, we can couple 2 metals or 3 metals if we choose to, because the method is very flexible. Why don't we have metal nanoparticles with the objective of upgrading the heavy oil, right? And I have one master's student working on this project. The other one we started very recent is selective removal of vanadium from heavy oil. And the heavy oil that we have, bitumen that we have, has lots of vanadium. The vanadium concentration there is very high. And this method has been used in the literature by using electrical fields. So we apply an electrical field, and that electrical field, in the presence of a little bit of water, will actually remove vanadium. So we thought to ourselves, what if we actually inject metallic nanoparticles? Metallic nanoparticles are conductive by nature, and they're going to make the electrical field more and more effective if you actually have it within the reservoir. And again, this is at the very early stages. We will look into it and we'll see what's going to happen as it progresses. And the very last objective, again, drilling fluids can be either water-based or organic-based. We know at least a methodology of forming nanoparticles, again of metallic origin, that can be embedded in oil-based drilling fluids. And those nanoparticles will actually be carrying signals from what's happening during drilling all the way to the surface through the drilling fluid, which is again a new project that we've started. We actually haven't started yet, but it was a good idea. The fact that, again, the metallic nanoparticles are very conductive and they're actually able to transfer signals through the drilling fluid itself, which has very important implications for people with expertise in the drilling fluids. So I think I will stop here. I just have to acknowledge the people that are involved. One of them is actually Pedro Pereira, and the supporting organizations, I should actually. So those are 2 students that were involved in this project. Pedro Pereira was also a co-supervisor of Luis Petrillo, and Maher Al-Jabari was an expert in the adsorption. He joined our group as a research associate. And the following organizations are actually supportive of ACIs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.